잠시 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 잠시 후 오후 3시 45분
The second session will start at 3:45. All the attendees, please make your entrance into the hall and take your seats. May I have your attention, please? The second session will start at 3:45. All the attendees, please make your entrance to the hall and take your seats.
Walking alone in the middle of the night, we shine bright than a diamond. We were strangers at the start, now we can't be apart. Sitting in the back of the cab, listen to hits from the past. Memories slowly arouse. I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop thinking about you. Whenever I'm not with you, it feels like falling down. I can't stop thinking about you. Stop thinking about you. Stop thinking about you. Looking at pictures from the past, want to remember what we had. Haven't found anyone like you, baby, I don't know what to do. I'm trying to figure it out, but my mind is filled with doubt. When you're not here by my side, I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop thinking about you. You can never say never was what they sang. The fray from my speakers when we laid in bed. Younger now than we were before. It's you that I truly adore. Stop thinking about you. I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop thinking about you.
네, 잠시 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 잠시 후
So the second session will start at 3:45 under the theme of promoting a new electricity market and the new energy industry. Attendees, please make your entrance and take your seats.
주제로 두 번째 세션을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 모두 행사장 안으로 들어오셔서 자리에 앉아주십시오.
All the attendees, please make your entrance to the hall.
네, 여러분 업계분들 오랜만에 만나서 즐거운
Ladies and gentlemen, I think you are enjoying your coffee break. Please make your entrance to the hall. From now on, we will start the second session. The theme of this session is promoting a new electricity market and the new energy industry. And the first presentation will be delivered by McNally Phil from UCL on separating electricity from gas prices through green power flows. Unfortunately, he could not be with us in person, but he sent a video presentation. Please give him a big round of applause.
I'm a research fellow in electricity markets at University College London, based here in the UK. I'm delighted to have been invited to this 19th edition of the Seoul International Conference on Electricity Markets. So today I'll give you an overview of UK experience with electricity markets and an introduction to the market design proposal, which myself and Professor Michael Grubb have been working on for the past few years. Michael is one of the leading energy economics and electricity market experts in the world, so I would urge you to follow his work. In regards to myself, as I say, I'm currently a research fellow at UCL. My background has been sort of 5 years in energy and electricity market design. I spent 3 years at Energy UK, the trade association and representation of the private energy sector in the UK, where I was focusing on low carbon electricity policy. And then I spent about just under 2 years at the Tony Blair Institute, focusing on net zero and energy research. So today I'll take you through 3 key parts of the presentation. So the first part will be some context around the electricity system in Great Britain and how it's changed over the last 10 to 20 years. The second part will look at decarbonising electricity in the UK and what needs to be done and by when. And then the third part will look in more detail at electricity market design. What are the issues with the current system and what do we think needs to be done to resolve those issues? So this slide here gives you an overview of the UK electricity generation mix of the last 20 years or so. So you can see the red line there around 2013, 2014 was the introduction of what we call EMR, electricity market reform in the UK. And this is the last major reform of electricity markets in the UK. It introduced 4 new elements to the UK market: the contracts for difference scheme, which offered competitively allocated fixed price contracts to renewable generators for generation. We had a new carbon price, which effectively made gas cheaper than coal to run and was a key driver of ensuring that coal was moved off the UK electricity system. As you can see to the right side of the graph, the black bars decreasing rapidly down to where we are today. Coal only produces around 2% of emissions, 2% of electricity generation in the UK today. We also had the capacity market scheme, which offers a competitively allocated payment to power plants to be on the system for periods of high demand, to ensure that the demand is always met and the system is secure. And finally, we had the emissions performance standard, which set emissions limit on power plants and was a regulation that also helped to reduce the amount of coal-fired power generation in the UK. So we've seen a rapid change, especially in the last 10 years or so, in the UK electricity system. Here we have two charts that show where the UK needs to go over the next 10 to 12 years or so. The target that the UK government has set is for a decarbonised electricity system by 2035. Electricity is also very important in the system because we expect electrification of other sectors to be a key element of decarbonising the whole UK economy by 2050. So currently in the UK, in terms of heating homes, 85% of the population, 85% of the 29 million homes across the UK heat their homes using natural gas boilers. We expect the vast majority of these heating systems to transition to electric heat pump systems over the next 10 to 20 to 30 years. On the vehicle side, obviously the majority of cars in the UK at the moment are petrol and diesel cars, but we are rapidly growing the number of electric vehicles in the UK. And we expect electric vehicles to be the dominant vehicle on the system sort of from 2035 beyond. In fact, the government does have a target and a regulation, which means fossil fuel and petrol vehicles will no longer be sold in the UK beyond 2030. So all of this means that there will be far more demand on the electricity system in the UK. We expect electricity capacity to need to at least double in the next 12 years to meet that demand. And this means huge increases in solar, and offshore wind, as well as the introduction of new technologies such as gas with carbon capture and storage, and hydrogen, low carbon hydrogen fired generation. The right-hand chart is an indicative generation mix from this capacity in 2035. We can see that the vast majority of electricity was coming from renewables and nuclear, the green and orange bars, and so there is still some unabated gas on the system, the grey bars at the bottom, but emissions from that is expected to be offset by the purple bars underneath the zero line, which will be negative emissions from bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. It's interesting that the UK expects to become a to change from being a net importer of electricity to becoming a net exporter of electricity by 2035. And this is because of all that renewable capacity that will be built, the offshore wind, onshore wind and solar capacity, means at certain times of the year, for potentially a lot of the year, the UK will be generating more electricity than is required, and we will therefore have excess electricity to sell to our neighbours, France, Germany, Belgium, Norway, all these countries that we have interconnectors with. So I think that is a high-level overview of the system as it stands. But what needs to be done in order to deliver that change between now and 2035? So there's three key areas to focus on. You may have heard them referred to in the past as the energy trilemma. So firstly, we must create an attractive investment environment to bring forward the billions of pounds of capital investment that will be needed to deliver the 100+ gigawatts of new generation capacity and storage. Supply chain investment and coordination will also be key to ensure that we have the capacity to build all of this brand new infrastructure across the UK. With all this new generation capacity that needs to come onto the system, there comes a challenge in moving that electricity around the country. So the second chart here to the bottom left shows how the electricity flows will change across the country between now and 2030. We will have far more renewable generation in the north of the UK, so off the coast of Scotland, far more demand in the southeast where the population is concentrated and people have electric vehicles and electric heating systems, and therefore we will have a need to move far more electricity across the UK, across the country from north to south, and as a result we will need far more transmission capacity and wires to carry all that power across the country to where it's needed. Currently we have an issue in the UK where planning and consenting regulations are creating delays of up to 13 years for new transmission capacity. So there's a clear sort of administrative barrier that needs to be overcome there. Finally, looking towards the right of this slide, we can see that all of this work for net zero will only really be affordable if energy bills to the end consumer remain affordable. The chart shows historical energy bills up to Q1 in 2023, so this year to March 2023. And these projections are now out of date, but they show that wholesale prices rose to unprecedented highs in mid to late 2022 into early 2023. And we have now seen prices drop off a little bit more since then. But you can see just how desperate the picture is for households. Government has had to step in with support, and at one point this winter was paying for half of household energy bills. In fact, households were paying energy bills that were twice the pre-crisis level. And at the same time, government picked up a bill of around 40 billion supporting the remaining side of the bills there that you can see towards the end of 2022 and into 2023. So clearly this is not a sustainable solution in the long run. So moving on to electricity market design, what this means for electricity market design and the challenges that we are facing today. So this slide is designed to show the changing nature of the GB system. At the top left, we can see how the key characteristics of the system are changing as we move from a fossil fuel based system to one that will be dominated by renewables in the future. So for the fossil fuel technologies, we know that they are baseload technology. They like to run most of the time. They're also flexible, what we would call dispatchable technologies, which means that you're able to turn them on and off to respond to changes in demand on the system. On the other side, the new technologies, wind and solar, are variable technologies. So they generate according to the weather conditions, the amount of sun, the amount of wind. They're also inflexible. We are not really able to turn these technologies on or off according to the demand on the system. The project cost profile I will come on to a little bit more detail below, but generally the costs are dominated by fuel costs for existing technologies, the gas and coal, whereas for new technologies, the overall project costs are dominated by capital costs, the actual construction of the power plant, because the fuel costs when the power plant is in operation are effectively zero, because the wind and sun are free resources. The role in the market is really interesting. So for gas and coal-fired power plants, they tend to operate at the margin of the market. You can see on the chart on the right-hand side, the dark bars, those are the high-cost technologies that are operating flexibly at the margin to meet demand at any one time. This means that they have very differentiated prices reflecting the variable costs on the system. In contrast, the new technologies, wind and solar, are price takers in the system. They will run whenever they're able to, whenever the wind is blowing, whenever the sun is shining. They are very low-priced technologies and therefore will always be chosen before the fossil fuels. They require stable prices reflecting the capital repayments. So if we look below here to the two horizontal bars, we can see the fundamental differences between the old and new technologies. Namely, this is the proportion of capital expenditure to operational expenditure over the lifetime of the project. For the typical gas-fired power station, the bottom bar, the dominant fossil fuel technology in the GB system, capital costs typically contribute to less than 10% of the overall lifetime cost of the project. Whereas for the typical offshore wind project, the top bar here, the capital costs contribute to around 60% of overall lifetime cost of the project. Now, this has big implications for project risk and therefore a project's ability to raise capital and the associated cost of that capital. In short, the high capital costs, the high capex balance means that investors are in a more exposed position when investing in renewables projects. As a result, volatility is a risk to investment in these types of projects. The more uncertain the revenue stream, the higher the risk, the higher the interest rate applied to the capital, and therefore the higher overall project cost. Whereas if the revenue stream can be made more certain, investment risk falls, the associated interest on the capital loans also falls, and the overall project cost falls as a result. In summary, this means that revenue certainty is absolutely critical for renewable projects and any other project with a high capex balance. On the right, we have the merit order of the GB electricity system. On the y-axis is the price, and on the x-axis is generation capacity or the demand that needs to be met at any one moment on the system. So at any time, at any given moment in the system, to meet demand on the system operator will stack generation from the cheapest to the most expensive until demand is met. So we will move from the left-hand side of this chart over to the right-hand side. The power plant at the margin sets the market price for that period, and all of the generators receive that price. This is what we call a pay-as-clear, short-run marginal cost price system. This has worked fine in the past in the UK when fossil fuels were relatively dominant in the system, and they have pretty similar prices. However, as renewables become more dominant, and we see the fossil fuels shifted towards the right, what we now have is effectively a system of two prices. The very low short-run marginal cost price of renewables, due to the absence of fuel cost, as I said, the wind and sun are free resources, is very different from the high short-run marginal cost of fossil fuels. So in the short term, technologies on the left side here can earn a significant windfall if they are not on fixed priced government contracts. And this results in consumers overpaying for their energy. In the long run, as renewables become more dominant and are able to meet demand on their own without fossil fuels, the wholesale price will collapse towards zero, creating a significant long-term risk for investors in recouping their capital. We see that this situation shows that the marginal cost curve is already split, and therefore continuing to treat the two pools of generation as one is clearly unsustainable as we move towards the future system. As a result, we've been doing a lot of work and a lot of thinking around alternative market design options, and now I'll take you through where we've come to. So here is our lead option for wholesale market electricity design in the UK, the green power pool. Sorry, I just skipped 2 slides. So I'll now take you through this design, starting at the top left. So qualifying green generators would hold a fixed price contract similar to CFDs to sell their power to the green power pool. At the top right, the remaining generators, the other generators in the market, will continue to sell their power as they do today into the wholesale market at the short-run marginal cost price. This is effectively the split that we already have in the current market, but it just treats the two technologies separately at the starting point. At times when the green power pool does not meet demand, the green power pool will buy additional power from the wholesale market. These are the two lines that you can see running across the top of the middle boxes. And they will buy that additional power to top up supply to meet demand. Whereas at times in the future, where there may be more generation, renewable generation on the system, and the green power pool is more than able to meet demand, and there is excess power in the green power pool, the green power pool would then sell this excess electricity to the wholesale market at the market clearing price, so a relatively cheap price. And this offers cheap electricity for storage and other flexible assets. Looking towards the bottom, on the left, the GPP would have two broad groups of customers: non-residential large energy users such as industry, and residential customers, household customers who would receive their GPP, the green power pool power, through a franchise supplier. Both of these customers would receive a two-tiered energy bill. The first tier would provide the assured price of electricity from the green power pool, the price being determined by the average cost of the fixed price contracts within the green power pool. The second tier would be the marginal cost of electricity from the wholesale market required from the GPP when supply does not meet demand. We believe that this structure would maintain efficient short-run marginal cost pricing on non-green generators, while introducing long-run marginal cost pricing for green generators. This aligns the pricing mechanism to the financial characteristics of the two technology groups and delivers certainty for both investors, whilst also delivering accuracy of prices for customers. We believe this is the fairest way forward for customers, and it also gives confidence to the market to invest in more green and renewable technology. Finally, just a quick case study of something that could be done with green power pool supply. So with a clear stream of low-cost renewable electricity, governments will have the option to target that supply at priority customers. In GB, Great Britain, we have identified steel plants as a clear example of a possible priority beneficiary group for GPP supply. The reasons we identify steel as being important is that it is a strategically important sector to the UK. It is also a sector with high energy usage and emissions, and it faces the most immediate threat to international competitiveness. So access to low-cost, reliable, priced, and clean electricity from a green power pool would make the steel sector more competitive. It would provide a long-term certainty of electricity prices, which in turn would give steel power plants confidence to invest in electrifying their operations, so switching from blast furnaces to electric arc furnaces. And of course, that would lead to a rapid reduction in emissions from the steel sector. We've heard recent reports that the UK government has been offering 600 million to the UK's 2 blast furnace sites to convert to electric arc furnaces, but that would require billions of co-investment from the companies themselves. And at the moment, with the uncertainty around electricity prices, they just do not seem to be in a position to want to make that investment. So having this long-term certainty over electricity prices could really help provide an incentive for that switch from blast furnace to electric arc furnace. So that brings me to the end of my presentation today. Thank you very much for listening, and please do get in touch if you have any questions. I hope you do enjoy the rest of the conference today. Thank you for your time.
네, 좋은 강연 해주신 런던.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Now we are going to have the Q&A session. Actually, because he cannot attend this conference, he sent us a video with pre-limited questions. Let's meet him together.
Hello and thank you. I'm very glad to join this Q&A session. So thank you for the first question. So is the Green Power Pool an idea in the UK's REMA, or Review of Electricity Market Arrangements process, or the EU's reform of electricity market design? So it's a good question, and it betrays very good knowledge of the developments of UK energy and electricity policy. So for those that are not aware, the Review of Electricity Market Arrangements, or REMA as we refer to it, is the first major review of electricity market arrangements in the UK since 2013, and that electricity market reform process that I mentioned in one of the first slides in my presentation. So it's quite an exciting reform. It's a big opportunity for change in the UK system. And I think it's actually an example that hopefully other countries around the world will be able to learn a lot from, because we really are stepping into the unknown here. The Green Power Pool proposal is indeed one of the formal options being considered as part of that process. The next step in that process will be a second consultation from government, which we expect to be released in November this year. At this point, government aims to further narrow down the options for reform and consult on the various benefits and drawbacks of the remaining options. Of course, we're in regular discussion with government officials, and we hope that the Green Power Pool continues through this next stage of consultation. We really do think that we need to see decoupling of gas and electricity prices. We see this as crucial in this period of elevated prices, and a route to protecting customers from future energy price shocks. So, there's benefits both on the supply side in terms of renewable generation and expanding investment in renewable generation. But right now, and importantly politically, it's very important to ensure that bills are affordable in the near term and the long term for consumers. At the European level, there's certainly awareness of the Green Power Pool proposal. We've done several presentations across the EU on this topic, but it's not formally being considered as an option for near-term implementation. I think the reason for that is that the EU Commission progressed quite quickly earlier this year with their own electricity market reform process. It was implemented, as I say, quite quickly at the start of the year, but the reason it was quick is that the reforms that were implemented were quite modest. So we're talking sort of amendments to support more PPAs, amendments and directives to member countries just to engage in more contracts for difference schemes. So we're not aware at the moment of considerations of more formal and fundamental reform options, and that is where the GPP, the Green Power Pool, would typically be included under consideration. So the second question that's come through: if a Green Power Pool is on the move, which organisation will operate it? Does National Grid Electricity System Operator, should that have responsibility of Green Power Pool operation? I think this is a great question. Really gets to the heart of one of the key issues with the Green Power Pool. So I'd say at present, we're simply referring to the organisation as the Green Power Pool operator. We haven't yet formally set out our preference as to whether this would be undertaken by an existing participant in the market or a new body. However, I think intriguingly, at the moment, we're also going through a process of transitioning from the current National Grid Electricity System Operator to a fully independent future system operator, which is expected to come into place sometime next year. This new independent future system operator will have a mandate to play a more active role in both the design and operation of the future system. And I think at present, this would appear to be the most natural operator for the Green Power Pool in future. I think one more question has come through. So we're looking at the current status of the Green Power Pool and the future plan. So I think the current status really in terms of the government's REMA process is what I'd explained in response to the first question. But in terms of our own work, we are currently finalizing a paper which is exploring how a Green Power Pool would work alongside retail tariff reform options to deliver lower and more stable bills for consumers in both the near term and the long term. The long term is crucial because a lot of the focus at the moment is on the near term, but we need to make sure that bills are affordable for consumers all the way through this transition. Otherwise, we will undermine all the effort and investment that is required in this transition. So this paper will be published on the 14th of September. So please do keep an eye out for that on the website, and obviously on Twitter we'll be posting threads that summarize the report. And beyond that point, I think the next big challenge for us at UCL is we're hoping to launch a new center for net zero electricity market design, which will be focused and headquartered at UCL. So at a very high level, the idea is to create dedicated academic resource that will, for the first few years, help to inform the government REMA process before expanding more widely and more broadly on UK and European electricity market reforms that will be required for net zero. I think it's important to say that we do not see electricity market reform as sort of a one-off short-term process. This is something that's going to have to continue to develop over time as we transition to net zero and the system and the requirements of the system change, and the requirements of the investors and consumers on the system change. So we see it as a quite gradual process with several sort of moments of reform over the next 5 to 10 years even. The centre will provide independent analysis and scrutiny of the various options that the UK government is considering in REMA, as well as exploring more novel policy options that aren't necessarily being considered in this reform process. Of course, the Green Power Pool will be one of the options that we'll be focusing some of the research on, and we'd like to develop that more. And obviously that is dependent on its progress through the government's current consultation. But we also intend to focus more broadly on the range of reform options that are being considered in REMA and other options beyond. Just for information, it will be co-funded, the centre, by UCL and industry, with direction provided by an advisory board, which will have industry players, a representative from the Government Department for Energy Security Net Zero, the government regulator, Ofgem, and National Grid, ESO, or the future system operator when it becomes that, and we'll obviously have it chaired by an independent expert. So if anyone is interested in that and would like to keep up to date with the progress of that centre, please do get in touch through the contact details provided on my presentation. Thank you.
네, 런던 대학교 맥넬.
Thank you very much for the wonderful Q&A session. Please give him a big round of applause.
네, 유익한 강연과 더불어서 Q&A 영상까지.
Thank you so much for your video and the Q&A video as well. Next speaker will tell us about the Korea electricity market reform in the era of net zero. The speaker is Mr. Kyul-oh, Vice President at Korea Power Exchange. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. Hello everyone, I'm Kyul-oh, Vice President from Korea Power Exchange. It's good to hear from the speaker in the UK and good to learn about what is going on in the country. So let me briefly tell you what is going on in the Korean electricity market, and let me connect the dots between the Korean electricity market and other countries' market. This is the content of my presentation. First, I'm going to talk about the restructuring need in the electricity market, and then there will be followed by our plans. And there are two pictures. As you can see, there are three major generators, including coal, as you can see on the top half of the page. As previous speakers said, decarbonization is here to stay, and the yellow is represented by electrification. So in extreme case, this is the direction we have to go, and this is quoted by the IAEA. And our deadline is 2050, so we don't have many decades. The faster, the better. The more there is a delay, the worse we will be. And this is familiar pictures for system operators. As you can see, the solar power, when there is enough sunlight, when there is no requirement or no need for nuclear power, we will have a picture looking like this. So there is an issue of a temporal situation. And at the bottom half of the page, you can see locational variance. As you can see, the sudden west southern part of the Korea is becoming black, and so this is a locational issue, and we have the voltage changes between depending on the region. The more renewable energy sources we have in our energy mix, we may face these challenges. Since I'm responsible for market situation in my organization, I listed up some of the pending and pressing issues. As you just heard from the UK speaker, we face this unprecedented challenge, including the war in Ukraine, and the wholesale prices surged. In Korea, it surged from 800 won to 1,000 won. So the wholesale market had some issues regarding settlement and payment. To hedge those challenges and risks, we may need another market on top of the day-ahead market. And our focus has been on REC when it comes to renewable sources, and we are using the same mechanism as the SMP in the wholesale market. So we need to diversify market and pricing mechanisms. The more renewable energies we are using, the more need there is for a new market. And synchronous generators are retiring, and LMP, SMP, you must be familiar with these terminologies, and they are associated primarily with LNG. Without LNG, we used to think that we might not be surviving in the market. Let's talk about policies and institutions in the market. And traditional policies and institutions have been linked with LNG and conventional energy sources. But as you often heard in this conference earlier, the share and the proportion of renewable energy sources is increasing. And the spot market considers variation and variability, and variable costs are not opportunity costs. And renewable energy sources would not require a fewer costs. So without a bidding system for market participants, we will face market structural limitations, and this we should be able to do without this structure. In Jeju Island and west southern part of Korea, they will be hit the hardest by this market structure, so we cannot afford to have a situation like this. As you saw the map on all your slides, maybe more areas will become black in the map. So talking about these issues, I believe the new government has been aware of these pending issues, so they came up with new policies, and those policies are outlined in the blue boxes. So if you look at the blue boxes, you will see the new administration has developed a new national task force for market restructuring. So we have this roadmap in place, and KPX is implementing the roadmap. But no matter how good the roadmap is, there could be some weakest links.
그래서 저희들이 하고 있는 것들을 그림으로 표현.
So this is the summary of our activities. It may look so simple, but if we don't do any of this, you are seeing in this slide, we will be in big trouble. So we started to deal with these challenges since 2020. Because of the issue regarding greenhouse gas emission, we came up with this plan. And as you heard, we have only one wholesale electricity market in Korea. And we also have nominal market, which is the current electricity market that didn't come up with, hasn't kept up with the changes in the energy industry landscape. So we should have done better, but as we transition into this new need for a new market, there are tasks we have to deal with. In the spot market, it has to be shifted into a real-time market. And here, a reserve means a lot, and renewable energy sources and non-central generators, we should allocate some roles to them. And it is related to the suggestion of a new bidding system for renewable energy sources. A couple of days ago, we heard this news. The media and the National Assembly have asked questions about this new plan, and there is a dedicated task force or dedicated team at KPX to answer those questions. Next, besides the physical dispatch response, this is our way to go. This is an inherent and fundamental problem in the electricity market. We cannot afford to avoid this question. And bidding market or long-term contract adoption will have an impact on the restructuring of the market. And this is related to the green power pool you just heard from the speaker in the UK. And hydrogen bidding system is the Korean version of the new market. And energy storage devices, it is related to the long-term contracting market and long-term bidding market. And what is missing here is renewable energy sources. And besides the government market that will deal with renewable energy sources, we may have to deal with RE100, and we have to come up with some solutions to deal with RE100. And we have some issues that we have to address when it comes to RE100 or other options or governance issues in market-based governance. And for those issues, we cannot develop a roadmap yet. So let me tell you the results first. And there are 3 important points you need to remember. And we have to get rid of the market that allows COF, and we may have to shift to the market that is similar to that of the US. Let's assume that we don't have a transmission network, and we have to eliminate COF. And let's assume that we come up with a new pricing mechanism that will compensate reserve. So these 3 sentences can be the summary of the market we have to create. Let's talk about real-time market. In the real-time market, we will have to come up with a new pricing mechanism. What is most important here is the transaction level. Day-ahead market was for the thermal-based power plants. But when it comes to renewable energy sources, we have to consider the variability and fluctuation in generation. So we may have to transact the generation at a smaller interval. After we create a market, we have to come up with a new settlement system and payment system. And these new ideas have already been integrated into new regulations and laws that haven't been taking effect yet, though. And all non-central generators will have to be subject to these new regulations and laws. So we are envisioning a mandatory bidding system, and what we are trying to do is to ensure dispatchable resources. Of course, there will be challenges, and some people will not be encouraged to participate in the market. So we may have to give incentives, such as storage devices. That is why we are putting importance in distributed resources. And maybe generators or power plants may have to make some payment to participate in the market. And of course, there could be some resistance from the operators in the markets, but we cannot solve the problems in the market fundamentally without dealing with or developing solutions to the pricing system. Another problem is the rigid competition system. Many people are saying this is incomplete and this generator is in and that generator is not in. Another problem is fuel costs. We have to talk about the market value and financial value. And personally, I think bidding for demand is most important. And I also want to encourage KEPCO to do more. So there should be competition between generation and competition between sales. But we have to think about whether the market can respond enough. I believe KEPCO has enough capabilities. So our idea is that starting next year, we adopt this new system for generators, and the new mandatory bidding system can start 2 years from now. Of course, there are prerequisites we have to deal with to make that happen. Next, the bidding market for hydrogen. This is exactly same as the CEF market in the UK, and it ensures the fixed price for 20 years. And there will be competition when it comes to investment. But when it comes to merit orders, there will be this summation of different items, and we have these items including a price score and non-price score, and contract price will be the same as the bidding price of a participant, and this is totally different from the price in the spot market. That is this way because we are ensured that there will be no competition, but except the UK, almost every country in the world are adopting the pay-as-bid system. And we are trying to achieve centralization and to address and mitigate risks in the way settlement is made. We will apply index. Once you win the bidding, you will be risk-free, and this is an ideal situation in the market because it doesn't offer any risks once you win your bid. So the bidding market for hydrogen was already created in the first half of this year. And early next year or by the first quarter of next year, we will implement the next stage. And the central market for storage devices, it is a little bit different from the markets I explained earlier in all your slides. And demand will be the scheduled resources, and we will also consider the bidding, but what is most important here is availability of ESS, and everything will be decided by central dispatchable resources. And we have to rely on system operators. They are the one who knows the best about the systems. And there are more. I didn't have enough space to put all the ideas in this slide, in one slide. One of them is the renewable energy PPA and green power pool, it is worth our consideration because PPA's biggest challenge is a super long-term contracts and counterparts. And the second next important issue is balancing. Let's say system operators have the Korean powerful system in place, there will be less problems. So in a way, it can be a twin market. And these are the alternatives we have been developing. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer your question. And he's the only speaker who didn't stay in the podium. Thank you for your passionate presentation. Now we will take questions from the audience. Please raise your hand if you have questions.
주시기 바랍니다. 아마도 더 열정적으로 답변해 주실 거예요.
I think he will be as passionate as answering your passionate to answer your question as he delivered his presentation. So can we let him go? Yes. Thank you so much, Vice President Kyol-ok, for your presentation.
전력 산업 한가운데서 애써 주시는 만큼
As he's working at the center of the electricity market, I think we could really listen to his insightful presentation. Next presenter is Ms. Lee Hye-jin from H2 Korea on the theme of global hydrogen economy policy. Very nice to meet you. My name is Lee Hye-jin. The light is too strong. Our audience, you are all Korean. Why have I made this slide in English? So I was asked how much hydrogen economy has been facilitated with what level of investment. So all of you are from the electricity market. I think you want to know what's happening regarding hydrogen economy. So these are the main policies of advanced countries that I'm going to cover from the first part, and then I will move on to incentive mechanism. Firstly, look at the U.S. policy development. The DOE announced Energy Earthshot Initiative in 2021 with hydrogen policies. They are quite ambitious. They want to make the cost of clean hydrogen to $1 per kilogram in 1 decade. I was quite surprised by this. They are making continuous effort with their policies, and this summer from last year, they decided to announce their strategy and roadmap for a larger amount of clean hydrogen. So now the clean hydrogen in Korea, in the US produced is about 10 million metric ton right now. It's quite important for decarbonization in the US, so they want to achieve 20 million by 2040 and 50 million by 2050 for clean hydrogen. So if you look at the bottom, you will see different sector, its willingness to pay acceptable price as suggested by sector, how much demand there will be in each sector, base case and high demand scenarios were used to show the range. As you all know, if you look at the hydrogen price for now in Korea, it's about 120,000 won in Korea, but if you want to go to 500 kilometers, it will cost about 50,000 won for charging. So although we have increased the price, it's still acceptable. For that reason, if you compare with oil, hydrogen can be produced at $4. Although the oil is much cheaper in the US, this price is still acceptable. So large scale and mid scale vehicles show the highest hydrogen price. For biofuels, power to liquid sector is the next. Jet fuel, airline price can be the area that we can apply this. And we have steel, ammonia, power sector, methane, heat, and you can also see additional demand in new markets. So this goal, 10 million by 2030, includes existing demand and new demand. And for the electric sector, you can see on the right side, certainty. Certain area is from 4 to 8, and for high demand scenario, more than 10 million tons will be needed. And when it comes to the infrastructure, a new act was passed in 2023. The US said they are going to establish clean hydrogen hubs. So from last year, by 2026, about $8 billion will be supported. So this is the goal of the US policy, and in the coming fall, they will select among the final candidates to decide the sites. And for production and infrastructure, if they are going to support them, the acceptable prices are low in some sectors. So to support demand, they are also going to invest up to $1 billion in a demand-side initiative. And for the EU case, renewables are quite dominant in the EU, and now they are trying to achieve energy transition. With the war in Ukraine, the EU has actually changed their stance quite a lot. So with Repower EU plan, the EU is focusing on hydrogen to replace the energy from Russia. So hydrogen will take more roles in the EU, and they have increased their targets. They will increase the demand to 20 million tons by 2030. Half will be produced in the EU, half will be imported from other countries. So when it comes to electrolyzer, they are trying to increase the capabilities with their initiative. It is called Electrolyzer Summit Declaration for technologies in Germany and Norway. Although it's not a EU member, they are trying to apply many technologies. And the industry and transport were important for hydrogen, so they are pursuing a large-scale support project like IPCEI. This is for the common interest of EU member countries, which includes high to tech and high to use. These are approved project by the EC. They are going to support 5.4 billion euros and 5.2 billion euros respectively. And with innovation fund in 2022 and 2023, they are going to invest more than 1.5 billion euros in many projects. And Germany has a quite strong steel, but renewable is dominant in Germany, so they are focusing on green hydrogen. And when it comes to utilizing and producing hydrogen, Germany has a quite developed technology. As you can see, Siemens, OEM companies, they are a German company, and ThyssenKrupp is also one of the strongest players. For the first time, ThyssenKrupps are going to participate in a large-scale project. So the German government is trying to push up their targets by 2030. For example, they are going to increase their electrolyzer capacity to 10 gigawatt by 2030. And for total demand, it will increase from 90 to 130 terawatt. So it's about 4 to 5 million tons, and 50% will be imported, and 50 to 70% will be imported, and the remaining part will be produced domestically. And they are trying to make a mechanism for, and they actually run the first round, but with more hydrogen demand, they realized that they can not only use green hydrogen, so they are now trying to use natural gas for blue hydrogen or turquoise hydrogen. This is something that is newly commented in a report. And they are also trying to improve for hydrogen-fired power. So they will have tenders up to 23.8 gigawatt of hydrogen-fired power plants by 2035, and they are talking about some subsidies for that, which have been quite materialized. And for support, the support for the industry, Sarcos and ThyssenKrupps are participating in Sarcos and TKH2 steel projects. So Germany is going to invest 1 billion and 2 billion euros into these two projects respectively. And they have already reserved about 1.5 billion euros for CCFT measures. It's a mechanism for the price difference, and Germany is also going to convert or newly build hydrogen pipelines, which is about more than 1,800 kilometers by 2027 and 2028. And if you look at the US was actually a catalyst for such policies in the EU. IRA was passed in the US, and depending on life cycle emissions, they will have 4 different tiers to limit the CO2 emissions below 4 kilograms per 1 kilogram of hydrogen. That means that they can provide tax credit up to $3 per 1 kilo of hydrogen production. And In the US, you can also choose investment tax credit. This is 30% of the capex. So they have a production tax credit and investment tax credit, and depending on the capacity factor, you can decide between the two. And alternatively, blue hydrogen can also use tax credit for CCS, $85 per 1 ton of CO2. So you can choose some capture technology like ATR technology. 99% of capturing is possible with this new technology. Then they can choose between these different tax credits, and these credits are able to be it's possible to trade these credits. So when these credits were first announced, the EU was quite strongly reacted to it, because they can produce blue hydrogen at $1.7. So it means with this credit, the price will go lower. And if you look at their roadmap, with technological advancement, they are moving toward $1. So it's a huge credit, and they are trying to push down the price of clean hydrogen to the level of gray hydrogen. So many companies are trying to produce in the US. There are promised projects. For blue, 60 to 70%, for green, 20-30%. The projects have been, have a plan, detailed plan. And Korea is also trying to participate in this. ExxonMobil or other number one energy companies working together. And this spring, under the European Green Deal Industrial Plan, they announced a new policy, EHB, that's to support imported hydrogen. So firstly, they are going to spend 800 million euros for first trial, and the disclosed selling price is 4 euros per 1 kilogram H2 for the fixed premium. And they will also have green premium auction with this platform, which and actually in Germany they have Hindco under HT Global for this dual auction system, and this is considered as one of the factors for this. So there is an agreement to utilize H2 global mechanism. So there will be a conference on the 31st of October where many important people will participate from Germany, and there the vice president of H2 Global will participate, and I think we can participate in this conference. One of our deputy director from the ministry had a lot of questions actually about this. So I think including him, more people can come to this conference. So they have already conducted the first auction and selecting project. They are using 900 million euros in ammonia, methane, and airline oil are subject to this. They are doing auction on this, and last year 3.5 billion euros were additionally secured for the next round of bidding. And if you look at the case in Japan, recently they updated their basic strategy for hydrogen. I think things are similar with us. They are using fuel mix technology, like using ammonia and hydrogen. I think Japan is quite open when it comes to mixed fuel. I think depending on the strike price and the reference price, there can be selling price or reference price, but this will be done in a way to compensate for the difference. As you can see here, like 6 to 8 trillion yen is secured for this auction system. And they are going to secure this budget with green GX. So in conclusion, hydrogen generation price is a source of concern for us. I can feel it. But every time I meet suppliers from other countries, they say there are many public organization that is backing the Korean market. It's quite unique when it comes to the Korean market. So they say you need to sell at a low price. In the US, it's a big hurdle, long-term contract. They say they will allow us to have long-term contract. Instead, you have to sell at a low price. That's what they say. So when it comes to ETS price, we are not at the right level. So these are supported by subsidies, which can be a big burden. So I'm working quite hard to resolve that, and I expect your strong cooperation. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation about the hydrogen policies from many countries. Now we are going to have a Q&A session. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and I will pass the microphone to you. If we don't have any questions, that's the end of her presentation. Thank you very much.
오늘 제19회 서울국제전력시장 컨퍼런스
With the 19th Seoul International Conference on the Electricity Market, we can see the trend and the future direction of the electricity market. In the second session, we are going to discuss on so in this session, we listen to presentations delivered by 3 different presenters. Professor McNally Phil, Vice President Okier, and Ms. Lee Hye-jin. Based on their presentations, I think you can participate in an active manner in this panel discussion. Now, I will start the panel discussion. Let me introduce researcher Lee Yoo-soo from KEEI and Mr. Park Chang-min, Executive Manager of GridWiz, and Professor Kim Jin-ho of GIST. I'd like to invite you onto the podium. Please give them a big round of applause.
네, 역시나 강연들로 인해서 시간이 좀 지체가
We are a little bit behind the schedule. Now I'm going to hand over a microphone to the moderator. I truly believe he will be a great moderator for the panel discussion. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yusu Lee from the KEEI. I'm the chair and moderator of this panel discussion. We heard a lot about good ideas in this session, following the first session, and there is a difference between the first session and the second session. In the first session, we heard about ideas of how we have to restructure the electricity market to ensure stability. In this second session, we discuss ideas about how to boost the new energy market and new energy business. And the first speaker was research fellow McNally Phil. He introduced us the idea of a green power pool. He suggested to split the green power pool from the wholesale market. And we used to have discussions on that. And now the ideas on the separation has been implemented. And his presentation was followed by Vice President Kyul Ok from Korea Power Exchange. He introduced us ideas and processes of where we are moving toward. And the last speaker, Ms. Hejin Lee, she introduced us incentive mechanisms. Creating a new market requires a lot of work and efforts and times. Markets are where transactions happen between different parties. So consumers and producers, they need to have incentives in the market to be involved in transactions. So when we create a new market, we need to consider this, but we didn't give enough thought to that. So we have witnessed a lot of issues when we created a new market, such as poorly managed pricing mechanisms. In the absence of adequate pricing mechanisms, operators and market participants, they are not willing to actively engage in the market transactions. So we need some incentives for market participants. And the existing market is not sustainable. To boost new energy business, we need to have basic understanding of market mechanism. We have to follow those basic market mechanisms and provide incentives. Then the market will be boosted automatically and naturally. So we heard from the three speakers, and we have two panelists on the stage with us. Let me first introduce you the panelists. To my left, we have Managing Director Changmin Park from Creative Ways. And sitting next to him is Professor Jinho Kim from The Gist. So let me hand over the microphone to Mr. Changmin Park.
It's very nice to meet you. My name is Park Changmin from Creative Ways. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. And Mr. Okier talked about the Korean electricity market reform and the future direction. Actually, I started my career in the electricity grid from 2008. At the time, I heard that the Korean power system is one of the top 3 in the world. We have a very stable power grid. So pricing mechanism is quite closely related to electricity infrastructure, from traditional generation to renewable generation, when we going this way, the best system that I heard in 2008 is now having many problems, they say. So when I see the market, there's an issue related to infrastructure, and there is a disadvantage related to infrastructure. And as we have more and more renewables, we need to think, the presenters talked about the direction that we need to go in. And the traditional energy and the new energy have different costs. Capex is high, Capex is low for the traditional, and OPEX is low for traditional. But the opposite is true for renewables. And in this term, how we can act in the market. With the old way, we cannot have a solution in the market. How can we solve this? That's the question that we need to think about. And for new energy industry, most new operations are closely related to pricing. The existing power system, generation system, TOU, pricing is something that I am thinking about how much it will go in the future. Variable renewables and variable EVs, there will be more and more variable demand. Can we deal with this with TOU, RTP, CPP? When we think about them, when we can have them in the market, this is closely related to energy new businesses. And from the second presentation, going forward, all energy will be electrified, and the spot market or BD market are something that we are trying to develop. But if you look at how we do it, from the generation part, we experience some errors. With more and more renewables, we realized prediction is quite important. So we open the market for prediction, but prediction is prediction. So now they are saying we need dispatchable renewables. So two-way renewable bidding is only for dispatchable renewables. The same is true for the demand side. For bidding on the demand side, flexible resource prediction is also just a prediction. When we move to a new power grid, we need to think about waiting for the controllable and predictable energy. There is a big change with the change of infrastructure. Now we have ESS. In 2010, at the time, ESS were really expensive. At the time, at the power grid, if we generate more than we need, we have to throw them away. But now we have ESS. Then supply is viable, and demand is also viable. Then we think about the weighting of the ESS. But from our experience, when it comes to the new energy industry, they said the best service is DR, and then they said it's ESS. But with the fire in ESS, they talked about EV, and now they are saying again that ESS is important. Variable for variable energy for supply, how we can find the balance? What's the value of controllability? I think this is the most important point when it comes to the new markets. Hydrogen is not my area, but between 2005 and 10, people talked about EV and hydrogen vehicle. Now, at the time, people were saying which is more important. Now we know both are important, but the important thing is seed money. We need to make the order depending on them. We need to think about both short term and long term at the same time in a holistic manner. That's the end of my comments.
여러 가지 말씀을
Thank you very much. You said you talked about various pricing and supply volatility is more serious, and the change in demand is something that we always have. And the role of ESS and the controllability is more important, is what he mentioned. And for hydrogen, we need to take a step-by-step measures for hydrogen. Next, Professor Kim Jin-ho.
Let me be brief here. I was very impressed by the speaker from the UK. The topic was very interesting. Introduction of GPP and encouraging cooperation between GPP and the existing wholesale market. I totally agree with the idea. Regarding green power pools, we have to define green first in Korea. The UK has been finished with discussing the definition of green. I think it's a good signal for creation of a new market. But in Korea, as we are trying to create a new market, we may be able to learn lessons from the green power pools in the UK. And regarding the second presentation, let me add a couple of comments. The central contract market managed by the KPX, I believe that is necessary. But even we don't have, not even in the central market, it will be nice to have a new market where the individuals or the private sector can be engaged in. And that requires fundamental changes in pricing systems. In the manufacturing sector, the KPX may open. Actually, it has opened a bidding market for ESS, but I think it will be nice to have a market where the private sector is voluntarily engaged. Let me add one more thing. New resources and new innovative technologies will be introduced to the electricity market, especially technologies used for EVs. As we have seen in the hydrogen and ESS, the current compensation system will not guarantee economic feasibility or financial stability for the new technologies. So that means we need a new pricing system. So everything comes down to pricing system. Yesterday, I went to a forum which discussed energy, And it was a forum between Korea and Germany. And Germany offers high price of energy when it comes to electric vehicles. And some of the speakers mentioned this challenge in the market, that even if they charge high prices, the economic feasibility has not been ensured in the German market. So changing the pricing system will not solve all problems. There are more problems to deal with. So innovative technologies should be introduced to the market in the future. But before that, we need to establish and implement policies that will encourage the adoption of new technologies. And regarding hydrogen, I believe hydrogen is a very interesting topic, and I learned from the speaker about what is going on in the US market when it comes to hydrogen, and thank you for the insightful information. As Korea is trying to achieve a hydrogen economy, we may learn from other countries as well.
네, 세 분의 말.
Thank you very much, Professor Kim Jin-ho. He has also made some comments on the presentations that we had. And low carbon central market is just begin in KPX. Operators need to make decisions voluntarily based on a foundation that should be well made. But first, we need well-organized pricing scheme. Compensation scheme is quite important. If market can compensate depending on the value of facilities, it will really help in the market. And he also said that he could learn a lot from those presentations. So now our panelists have closed their comments, and now I'll take questions from the floor. Any question? Because we have some more time to take questions. Okay, there. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentations and the comments. Basically, hydrogen bidding market, central contract market, etc. These new markets are going in the right direction when it comes to diversify the electricity market. But at the national level, when we build the national plan, NDC 2030s are always being mentioned. It's a quite important question. Central markets and hydrogen contract, how much they can contribute? How much they can contribute to the carbon reduction? And with the NDC, I'm always wondered about this. Is there any comments that you can provide to me when it comes to this? I think Vice President Oh can answer this question.
저기 좀 연결돼 있는 이야기인데
It is related to what Professor Jin-ho Kim said. Neoliberalism. Let's think about it. Ideas proposed by neoliberalism will not solve every problem, but from economic perspective, many scholars are proposing new liberalism. You may wonder whether new real-time prices will solve every problem. If you look at the US, the answer is not clear. So we have to paint a big picture. So LRMC that allows a long-term contract, is the market achievable? You may not be sure. And central market will allow contracts at least for 15 minutes. So we don't have we may not have voluntary participants in the market. And let's think about the spot market. It offers a contract. The longest contract that is offered by the spot market is only 3 years. So there is this controversy. So the central contract market we want to create is having this name. We may name the market differently, but we wanted to put the word central because the government will provide policies to facilitate the market. So as somebody pointed out earlier, this is not a volunteer demand. So we may have to force demand by policies. As I said in my presentation, demand is decided by the government policy, and supply and demand plan is also affected by policies. By 2050, we may have to revolutionize the world. So it may be time for us to develop an organized plan, but at least we have to provide a generation forecast. Of course, we believe that if we can encourage investment only based on spot market, that would be nice, but we may have to consider other generations in the market, the voluntary generation, and everything will be decided by the government and the government plan specifically, and that will make or break everything in the market. And CFD and other types of markets, if I understand correctly, they are decided and determined by government planning. Does that answer your question?
답변을 해주시.
Is there another question? Then, since we don't have any further questions, I have a question to Ms. Lee Hae-jin. From your presentation slide, for the U.S. policies, by 2030, they are targeting $1 per kg of H2, and they are providing many support. But compared to Korea, their support policies are not enough. So when it comes to price competitiveness, I think there will be some difficulties. So how we can prepare to this going forward? Firstly, as you said, for now, to facilitate the ecosystem for green hydrogen, we are providing support for demand side. But rather than keeping this, we need to secure the economy of scale to reduce the price. That's the best way. So as you can see, we are seeing two-way policy support, but production phase policy is now can be increased for further support. And we are all actually giving a lot of thoughts about this. And we are doing many research on this. We all know this is the right direction, and the National Assembly is also recognized the need for support for clean energy. And now, so I think we are witnessing some changes. It's not easy, but I think we should have a fund that's only designated for hydrogen, and certification or bidding markets are now under development. With our effort, we need some time to review such ideas, so I cannot show you them all. But if we can be secure for new things next year, I think we can put more efforts on raising budget and fund, facilitating domestic ecosystem, Hydrogen is the secondary energy, so the biggest factor is the unit price for renewable energy generation. So we need support as well here to establish supply chain. Korean companies need to work hard to decrease such a unit price, because the project capex is quite important. We cannot change the price as of now. Korean companies need to step up as a main player to develop policies and technologies at the same time. Thank you very much for your answer. You talked about the unit price of renewable energy. To add to your comment, it's very difficult to have innovative system in Korea. That is because compared to other countries, I think the generation unit price in Korea is quite high. As you talked about GPP, as of now, it's difficult to have a GPP in Korea because in the UK they have large-scale wind farms with really low unit price, generation price. So it's difficult. So they think it's not right to have all this in one market. So now they are separating the market into two. But in Korea, although we are at a similar level with them, but what we need to now is really need to dramatically increase the generation unit price of renewables. Then I think with improved policies, we can just naturally see good changes. We can have such potential. Otherwise, even if we try to make changes, something is holding us back. That is all because of the low electricity bill and other technology related to cost. It's really difficult to enter into the market with low economic feasibility, high cost, and we are lack of inducement. So it's really have such inducement for change. So if it's possible, I think we need to have a normal mechanism so it becomes natural to enter into the market. Then I think we can achieve net zero in a faster manner. Thank you very much for your input and comments in this conference. And my appreciation also goes to all the audience. That's the end of the second session. Thank you. This wraps up the panel discussion. And thank you very much, Mr. Lee Yoo-soo, for your leading. And I'd also like to thank our panelists for their insightful comments. Please give them a big round of applause.
네, 이것으로
This wraps up the 19th Seoul International Conference on the Electricity Market. Thank you very much for your active participation. And please drop by the registration desk because they have prepared some small gifts for participants. So it was your MC, Jiun Yang. Thank you very much.